to be on that nice blue background.
Oh yeah, yeah. You just
file in a little bit, I guess. Just waiting for people. Waiting for Spencer to send his tweets. If anyone sees us live, they should put a comment in the chat. So,
what is the gotta get the URL here. Hang on 1 second. I'm gonna freaking get the XRL, the XR Talk or URL. XR Talk. Where are you? There you are. There we are. No, this is not an iPad. Okay, and where is it? Watch dot.
Yes, we're live. We're live. We've been live for 50 seconds.
Oh God!
But go ahead.
Okay.
The world will just watch you tweet.
Watch dot
XR. This is xrtalk.net.
xrtalk.net. xrtalk.net.
Yeah.
I've tweeted.
Just keep tweeting, and then people will log in and they'll see you tweeting live to tell more people.
They'll see me tweeting and. All right. How come
that's
I can't
okay?
see anything anymore?
Oh God, I don't know. Jesus.
What happened? Here, there you go. Call started. Oh, there we are. No. Oh, it's over here.
Yeah. So see, we spent
I'm figuring it out, right?
Yeah, we spent the first 5 minutes of the first and final episode introducing ourselves. We're going to spend the first 5 minutes of this one watching the side of Spencer's head work on his iPad.
I've got it. Okay.
Well, we got a couple of people here.
Things to talk about.
I don't know. Where should we start? I mean, we got all kinds of things we could talk about. It's been a little while since we are going to try to do this weekly starting in February. We're still playing around with the time. A lot of people said any time, but yeah, I don't know. We could talk about all kinds of stuff.
Hey, hi David, hi Leanne.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, thanks guys. Ooh, I had to broadcast. Let me have to try that. We are going to have guests. We're just waiting until we figure out our groove, our rhythm.
We don't quite have it down yet.
Not quite. I mean, if we were to have another episode. So
okay. So can I rant a little bit?
Yeah, let's rant.
Okay.
Let's be controversial. Nobody wants to watch people just be nice. Let's be.
Right? Everyone's got to be mean.
Let's be the mean people of XR. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been doing the augmented reality stuff with you for a long time, and there's a certain level of fascination and childlike wonder that happens when people talk about augmented reality. They see they see the movies, and they see what happens in the Iron Man's in Tony's garage, and they're like, yes, I want the Jarvis computer. You know, it's awesome. And it is. It's awesome. It's great. And it's not there yet, and we don't have that. And so one of the things that, and I will go ahead and kind of bust out a little bit on Magic Leap. One of the things that we did there was we made whales come out of the freaking floor in an auditorium, and I fought our CMO at the time tooth and nail to not have that happen, because it was disingenuous. That's not exactly what our hardware was doing.
Can we jump into that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Because this is our forum, so we can talk about this stuff.
That's right. We can talk about whatever within reason.
Yeah. So we were at Magic Leap very, very early. We were there in 2014 when it's just a few dozen people, and then we were there for a few years. And during that period of time, they went from super secretive to starting to release some information. And in the early days, there were two videos, right? There was the whale coming out of the gym floor, and there was the Dr. G video. And
right.
They were presented in such a way as to be confusing. Are we looking at the real technology here? Is this a concept video? And by the company not being super clear about what it was and kind of letting it be mysterious, it caused a lot of skepticism but also a lot of hype. And I will say most of the employees did not agree with that approach. Like we were all pretty surprised and did not.
It still remains to be seen, and this is the part of my of my rant that bothers me a little bit, is that it worked. It got a lot of attention. It really, really worked. It may not have gotten the right type of attention, and it may have been confusing, and probably in the long term wasn't that great for people's trust in the company. Did generate a ton of eyeballs, and so in that way it did work.
Well, and then that perfectly, when you were kind of building, and I'm going to let you rant, but when you're building up to your rant, that's what when you're saying like the people see like the science fiction future, and
right.
I don't think that's as much the problem as much as how much the current social media environment is geared around showing very, very, viral video that gets attention and shared, and so my take on it is ultimately you wind up at a spot where the real practical stuff that actually works, that anybody can run on their hardware or on their phone, is not nearly as cool looking as these super slick mock-ups and videos.
Right. And so and what that does is that hurts the overall industry, because people who are coming into an AR experience are coming into it expecting to see the marketing promo version of AR, and what they're seeing is a reality version of AR that's available on a cell phone, and so they get disappointed, and then that makes them less interested in it, and then they fill out survey forms that say, no, AR doesn't make me want to buy things, and then our clients say, no, AR is not that great for our clients because look at this survey, right? I mean,
as I think about it though, like I remember, like, we come from the video game world, like the box art on video games have never, not never, but for a very long time, like let's say the Atari 2600 days, the box art for Missile Command made that game look like it was insane, and it was all 8-bit. So, I mean, I think what it is there's always marketing. There's good marketing, and but yeah, I think everyone's expectations are really high. I tweeted about this a couple weeks ago too. Like, I just see people like our expectation is such a tough environment because expectations are so high, and everybody wants the most amazing thing. And then if you show a video of something real, that is not to say that it's not possible to make a cool looking video of a practical real thing, but for the most part, you do have people. I mean, we had our own direct experience in that, but Microsoft got in trouble for this too, right? With the HoloLens 1, they were showing a lot. They weren't showing the field of view, and I think everybody kind of learned their lesson.
Overlaying what the person was supposed to be seeing, on the stage, which was great because technically it was true that geometry was in the system and being rendered, but not. The frustum of the video of the display was much narrower than what you were seeing, as a third person, and that is, I think, kind of okay now that we're all. I mean, right back then, the field of view was so important to everybody. Like, what's the field of view?
Right.
Like, that was the big giant selling point, and it's actually getting wide enough to kind of be like, well, is it 1K or 1.5K, or it's like it doesn't. We've gotten to a place where it's usable. And the first HoloLens was just barely on the edge of usable, and our development stuff had it much wider than that. And it was great. We were like, we want to show that off. I don't think there's a problem with showing AR content in third person, as long as the content looks like it does through the device. And I just looked at a couple. This is what prompted that tweet that I just put out. Is I just looked at like 2 or 3 ads for, or promo, videos for projects that are cool looking projects. They're really neat, and the promo material is all photoshopped, solid buildings on a table, and you can't see through any bit of it. It's all completely solid, and optical see-through AR doesn't do that yet. We don't have black pixels yet. We can't occlude the background completely with the content.
There's no such thing as black. We can talk about black too. I've always wanted to talk about black, I will say though, I think this is true of HoloLens as well. Maybe somebody in the audience knows. When you do a recording, like a direct on-device recording, I know this is true with Magic Leap. They do, when they composite the video recording with the virtual content, they do put transparency in it. So the video is more representative. I think it's still difficult to make that true, because for that to work, just so everybody knows, the device is recording a color camera feed of what the device is seeing, and it's also recording the frames of the virtual content that's being shown to the viewer. But the viewer with 2 eyes, if they have 2 eyes, is getting both. They're getting photons in both eyes. So they're getting a nice bright image, and they're getting fed a left eye perspective and a right eye perspective. When you record to a video, you have to choose an eye, because it doesn't make sense to blend those two for a video. And so it's difficult. In other words, it's difficult to make it truly representative of the live actual experience. But I will say that I'm pretty sure both HoloLens and Magic Leap, at least, do show transparency of the virtual content in the digital recording. So at least
they show intentional content. Here's one of them that I was looking at, and it's a really cool project. It's very techy. It's very kind of like programmer art kind of stuff. It looks like it's very
you want me to bring
usable.
it up?
Yeah, it's Flow Immersive is the at Flow Immersive. It's linked a couple down on the Made with Magic Leap Twitter feed.
But it's just to be clear though, what I was talking about was the recording capability on the devices for everyone. So when anyone makes a demo video or recording video, it's properly, or not properly. It has some transparency to it. It's all faked. It's fake transparency to give you a sense of what it would look like. Okay, so Flow.
Well, you look at this.
Well,
looks like it was.
We're gonna try our new. Ooh, look at that! Okay. Look at that. We're still on the screen, but we've got our browser up. So Flow Immersive.
Whoa.
What do you mean to do?
Yeah.
Come down.
Well, it was on the. Yeah, it's tracking the coronavirus. That's the one right there. The purple one, the Earth.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and so that piece is it looks like they've got a networked 2-player environment, and it looks like they've got but it looks like they're recording with one of the Magic Leap devices.
But
it's completely. Like that purple would not be completely.
Well, so this is also a third-party recording. So what I was talking about is if the person there wearing the headset was recording what he saw. But now this is a whole other thing, which is spectator recording, right? So if I had to guess, this view is an iPad, and they're doing a multiplayer experience, and this recording is probably an iPad. It's going to look the best. Anyway.
Okay, right. So then it's video see-through instead of optical see-through.
Yeah, well, and it's going to be opaque and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of technical challenges with this, but the point still stands. Like the showing of this content, we've got to be like ready for some rough looking stuff. And the other part of it is too.
But I mean, look at Tonandi. Tonandi looks freaking amazing. And if I do say so myself, my little render of Gimbal under the table that we did, or the cool planetary thing in Anna's office, that stuff looked good, and it was still transparent.
That was the other point I was going to. When they touch up the marketing, let's just call it marketing materials, because I don't know if they're purposely trying to be. I'm not going to say they're purposely trying to be deceptive, but in the marketing materials, it's because some content just looks better. So do you tune the content to be shareable and showable, or like, I don't know. I don't think there's a wrong answer. It does get it. It is. I think in particular we get sensitive about it because we don't want people to be disappointed, and we want people to stay interested in these technologies. And when people allow them the content to be misrepresented, it feels like it's hurting us in the long run.
Yes, and that was my point. Is that you can work a little harder on your promo materials and make it look accurate and also beautiful. Like we're in the wild west of content display on this new device, and the way that I have thought about it in the past. Pardon me, I'm having a seltzer water, and it is causing me to belch.
Keep it real.
Where was I? The Wild West. When I started working in 3D at Atari, our cars were 300 polygons max. That was all the polys we had for a car, and no texture maps. All of the detail was a polygon. So we're there now. We have to understand that we can't pump out, a million polygons for a car in a mobile headset, and that we have to like work within the limitations, which is great because you can get some beautiful stuff with, if you place it correctly. One of the things that just blew my mind was when Virtua Fighter first came out, and all of the characters were these super blocky polygon characters, but the way that they moved and the animation, and they had ponytail physics on Pi, and they had all of these, like, the characters looked amazing because each polygon was exactly in the right spot. They had this really,
But that kind of goes back to what we talked about last time around. You get there, you leverage the constraints by really pushing the tech, and you can only do that as much as your experience and the tools will allow.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't. That was I don't know how helpful that rant was for people, but but it was helpful for Spencer.
It was good for me. I feel better now. So
I'll do a short rant. I'm gonna do a really short rant because I think I was actually, it's out of my system now, but there was a news story going around a couple weeks ago coming out of CES, the AR contact lenses, and it was just driving me nuts because it was everywhere. And the
cool picture though.
I guess. I mean, the company has raised a ton of funding. They were in stealth. I actually found a press release where they said they came out of stealth in 2018, but now they're coming out of stealth again. And their demo, as far as I understand it, I'm happy to be corrected, what at CES was you put on a VR headset to see what this contact lens will eventually show you. Or they had like a little tiny window that you could walk up to and peek through, because there's and the press ran wild with it and said AR contact lenses are here. It's like we already battled the whole. Well, I don't want to do mobile phone AR because I want a pair of glasses, and so now we've already got the press pushing contact lens. These things are so far away from anywhere near. Like they're so like even the diagram they show. It's like how does the power and the compute run to the same? How do you control heat on your eyeball?
Right, I was going to say, have you felt the bridge of the ML1?
Yeah,
or the HoloLens?
And people talking about the like, oh, you won't know when people are wearing them. No, there's a big copper trace running. Oh, and they've got like a fake eyeball cap that covers it up. Anyway, I'm not going to get just don't. Anybody that's waiting for AR contact lenses, you're going to be waiting a very long time. We got to figure out phones first, and then we got to figure out glasses. So anyway, but it's just interesting to see that. I like the first day it was kind of funny, and then by day 3, showing up on my LinkedIn and my Twitter and people sending it to me and stuff, I was just kind of annoyed. But anyway, the good thing about all of this is it just means people are super interested in the future of computing, where this is all heading. And
right.
I really don't want our show to be this futurist type of stuff. I really love to talk about more practical things, but
what we're doing right now.
Yeah, it is cool. So that was my little rant. So
hey, you know what? I got something. If you because we were talking about that freaking incredible Unity piece that Greg Madison did.
I have it. I have it up.
You have it there. Did this, basically rebuilt his whole apartment in Unity, and then walked around with the Quest after somehow matching it perfectly to matching the environment perfectly to the system. I'd love to get a little behind the scenes on how he did this.
Well, but, this actually brings up. Yeah, we could definitely talk some practical stuff here. Because what we're looking at is a side-by-side video feed. Hopefully everybody can see that. This is my first time doing full screen like that. And he has, on the left-hand side is the completely VR view. So there's nothing real about what's being shown on the left-hand side. The right-hand side is like a GoPro view of the real world. And what this person's done is they've recreated their environment. And this kind of ties into, like, we could talk about like the Ubiquity 6 stuff too again, because there's some interesting stuff there. But so to me, when I see stuff like this, my first thought is it's all about calibration. So not only did he need to build the geometry that matches up with the major elements of the real world environment, but there's got to be a moment of calibration. This is what so many people don't think about or realize is I could put on a VR headset and open up his living room in my basement and walk around his living room and then probably walk into my basement walls because it's not the same environment.
Right, bonk your head, right.
So, but if he also opened up that environment in the room and didn't calibrate it properly, he could hurt himself or he could walk into something.
Right? Yeah.
So
and
that's the part to me.
The registration is freaking spotless, because if you look at the beginning of the video, he does a tap on the kitchen, kind of on the table. He taps like that right there. He opens up a thing, and he goes like this, right? And then he walks all the way to the other side of the room, basically diagonally all the way across this big room, and he sits down on the chair, and he does the same thing on the couch. So it's like
But here you
It's
get
really close.
yeah, but see, like the table. So like this is the type of stuff we look at. Just we're totally nerding out on this stuff. Like so, I've paused it, and you can see his hands are on the tabletop, the real world tabletop on the right. And on the left, you can see the edge of the table is actually like at his thumb tips.
Yeah,
It's just a little bit, but it is off. And then by the way, this is super cool. I'm not picking on this project at all, but it's just to kind of help people understand what we're talking about. And then when he goes over to the keyboard, he's going to put his hand on the keyboard, and you'll notice like. So I think the other thing that helps sell it is he's using real hand tracking. So that really is his hands, and so his fingers are going to match up perfectly.
Right.
But like his key, he's not exactly on the same keys. It doesn't look like to me.
Right.
So I like the word. I need to start using the word registration more. I see calibration because that's kind of like a nerdy term for all the head-worn stuff. But registering to the real world. That's something that it comes up constantly. Like this is not just a VR thing, right? This is a big time AR thing. When you want to see virtual content lined up with the real world, you've got to calibrate. So would you say? So I know you're super into this project, and then we've been talking about you're so into all this scanning stuff, and I am too to some degree. And so and related to this. This is going to be the second and final episode where we talk about Ubiquity 6, but Ubiquity 6 announced a big update to their mobile app where you can actually download the geometry through their mobile app. You've been able to do it through their web interface, and it's kind of a little bit of a hacky-hokey thing, but now it's built into the production app that you download. You can download the mesh. I still haven't tested to see if it downloads the cropped version or if it's the full the raw mesh that you capture. But couldn't we just grab our Ubiquity 6 scan and drop it into VR and then figure out we could figure out how to register. That's why that's the first thing I thought when I saw this guy's stuff is how do we register?
Right.
You got to have a known.
There's a way I don't know if you've looked at the SDK for the Quest. Is there a way to overlay the black and white cameras on
I don't think they allow. It only comes up when you're setting the Guardian. Like I think a bunch of people have asked about that. So the Quest, the Oculus Quest,
that would be super helpful, right? I mean,
has a decent pass through.
Yeah. If you had some way to position and scale and rotate
that's the trick.
The model
you need
and also look through the stuff, you'd be basically setting your Guardian, but you're setting your Guardian with a real world model that you've got.
Well, that's the ideal way to but the key is that the viewer needs to register. So like what he could do, so that I guess the key is for that to work. Unless you really just hate yourself and you're trying to calibrate it, and I'm assuming he's using Unity, so trying to calibrate that in Unity. Well, no, that wouldn't even matter because when you put on the headset, the viewer needs the ability to move the content around, and so not scale it. You can control scale, so that's fine, but the viewer needs to be able to rotate and translate the content around, and then even without pass-through like you're talking about, which would be the better way to do it, you could stand at like a corner of a table and hold your hand on the real corner.
Well, what
drag
about
it over.
What about using image tracking? I mean,
that's how you do it for you. I mean, image tracking is how you register. Like that is fundamentally how you do it.
Like when archaeologists are using photogrammetry to get really, really accurate scans of a artifact of some kind, they'll put down recognizable scale objects, and then the program that you're using will recognize that scale object as the size, length, width of it, right? Because it's got it in the system. It's like, okay, yeah, we're going to use this type of scale object. So when it sees that, it's like it perfectly scales. As long as you have that thing in each one of your photogrammetry input pictures, then the scale of the object when it is processed will be at the correct scale. And so I'm wondering if we could use like a Ruko or some other kind of marker at a certain size, so we know the size of it and we know the orientation and what it is.
I don't think scale's the issue, because you just stick to a meter unit scale like we do with everything. I think what you've basically described is how persistent AR works right now, which is it uses the camera feed to build its own version of markers, except you don't have to print one, and like you don't have a set marker. It kind of it's creating markers out of the world, looking for features. I mean, but in the VR one's a tougher one, right? Because you don't necessarily have computer vision capable cameras. But or another way to look at it, if you use an Oculus Quest, when you put it on, and first of all, it immediately recognizes you're in a different room, and then if it happens to know the guardian for that room, it will show it, and it'll be so there's actually a little bit of persistent AR stuff going in the Oculus Quest.
I did a little test of this actually. Shawneen and I were hanging out, and we were looking at the new chalet Quest environment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big ski thing, and we wanted to walk back into the house and go check it out and go look at the bookshelves and stuff. And I was like, well, you can't, because you're making this little square in front of the TV and the couch is in the way. And she's like, well, can't you just like walk around the house and make this big long weird thing? And in fact, you can.
Well, you can make a big you can make a big guardian, but did it let you walk through the environment?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we walked out into the thing, and I was looking at books like this far away, and then I realized, oh well, what if I went into Tilt Brush, and I used a glowing blue line, and I just put my hand on the surface of everything I could touch, and just made a square around the back of the chair, and then made a square around the chair, and I built up a kind of a janky version of the environment that I was in Tilt Brush, and then I could like walk around it and go, oh yeah, I can sit there.
Yeah, and you don't have the registration problem because you built it in a registered environment. The environment is so that's how you get around that.
Right.
David asked in the chat if you could upload the Ubiquity 6 downloads to Torch. Actually, you can. So the cool thing is, if you download from Ubiquity 6 within the app, it gives you the mesh is zipped, and so Torch requires you to upload a mesh in a zipped format. So you can actually do this completely on your phone without ever going to a computer, which is cool. So you just, when you do the download mesh in Ubiquity 6, you choose a location, either cloud storage or your local files app. And then you can go into Torch in a new project. In the asset drawer, you can say, I want to browse for a new asset. And you just browse to wherever you saved it, and it should load. And I don't know that we've had a ton of people do it lately, but I've definitely pulled in a Ubiquity 6 mesh into Torch a long time ago, and it worked fine. So I would use the GLTF version.
You can also bring it into the Quest using the browser. There's kind of a janky way of doing it, but Anne-Marie showed me how to bring this scan of this big warehouse environment I did to the browser and actually walk around inside of your scan. So
well, they're running on top of the mostly web stuff, so that's how they're able to. You can take your mesh. Even their mobile app is running on top of web tech, so that's why the same thing you see in AR. Actually, they don't show it in AR yet, I don't think, but you're scanning in AR. But anyway, the same render is being used, and you can load it into web VR. It's web VR capable. So, are you starting a cooking show?
I am. I'm gonna be cooking a cocktail because it's about that time. So.
Yeah, so we had a lot of questions over the past couple of weeks around some more like, I don't want to say beginner stuff, but like people are curious about terminology and jargon and acronyms, and then there's a lot of people wanting to know just how to get into working on this stuff.
My brother told me the other day that he has TLASS.
3-letter acronym. Something.
Sensitivity syndrome.
Yeah. Well, so there. I have always avoided or tried to avoid or make light of the whole XR versus VR versus AR thing. It flared up again last week on Twitter when I believe it was Ben from Road to VR maybe just asked if there could be some agreement on terms, which starts a whole disagreement about terms. We say XR. The reason why I call this XR is in my mind the X is a placeholder, and it's just an easier way of saying, instead of saying AR VR. Some people say the X is for extended reality type of stuff. So I don't know. I never say extended reality. I'm not even sure where that might go. But the people have different definitions.
It's not cinematic reality.
Yeah. Well, people have tried to introduce new things, and people have tried to appropriate others. Wow, you just went short.
Short. There we go.
It's always safe to say AR and VR. Frankly, when I talk to people that are not big nerds like us, they even call AR virtual reality. Like when we had our office, and the people in the building were like, "Those guys do virtual reality stuff," and it's like, okay, I'm not going to correct them. What's the point?
Right.
And I don't really care that much. Like I don't. I think it does.
As long as you're interested in it.
I mean,
you can call it whatever you want.
Well, I think it goes back to like
what
we were saying earlier around the sensitivity around people being misleading with their marketing stuff, and it's just because we love all this stuff and we want people to feel comfortable and understand everything that we do, and I think that's why people get upset about acronyms. But if people hate that this show's called XR Talk, I'm sorry, but it doesn't.
Sorry.
Not really. But
yeah, besides, this is the final episode. So
So sorry, but and then there, like Dave said in the chat, I do use spatial computing. The reason why I use that term is very umbrella to say like computers that are aware of the physical space. So like autonomous cars, robotics, all that stuff has some form of spatial awareness or spatial computing. It's also a way of saying like this is a digital interactive thing that requires you to move around, or it is aware of your movements and stuff. So it's just a kind of it's like a softer term. I know you're not actually crazy about spatial computing.
It's when I hear spatial computing, it sounds to me like the computing is being done in space, or that is being done somehow volumetrically. That it's like some other.
Oh, I see. On the processing side, see, I don't even think about that.
Right. Yeah, it's like no, it's spatial display, it's spatial interaction, but it's not actually spatial computing.
Well, I'm from the deep south, so I also think it means special. I think
it's spatial computing.
Yeah. Whenever I hear somebody say spatial, I have to pause and make sure they're not saying it with a real thick Southern accent. You're so spatial. Yeah. So we had a lot of questions around like
something up. Hey.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I just froze up. Yeah, questions. Yeah, hit the questions.
Let's see. So Emily Smith asked from the last show to talk about replayability, like what works well to make an XR experience replayable. It's actually a really good question. Because it kind of ties in. Man, you really teed us up with that rant. I was a little worried that you went on a 15-minute rant, but it's been the ongoing theme. The other epidemic we have in our industry is demos that are not very compelling, that you never actually want to see again once you see it.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of at the heart of this question, like replayability. I think I don't know if there's anything, well, I don't know, I have to think. Is there anything specific about XR that would encourage replayability? Well, there are things that are unique that are only possible with these technologies, right? There's putting virtual content, anchoring it into physical spaces. There's VR where there's only there are certain mechanics or only things you can only do with these technologies, but that alone doesn't make them replayable. So I think I don't know if it's specific to the tech though. I think this is just product like thinking, right?
It's like what makes a video game replayable. What you know, it's the content. It's the different ways that you can mess with it. You know, what makes a soccer ball replayable? You can play soccer with it, or you can sit there and dribble with it, and then you can get derivatives like the hacky sack from it. And you know, like what's replayable about anything?
Soccer ball is an interesting example because the soccer ball always responds differently, I think. So I think, if I remember correctly,
so maybe physics maybe something.
That definitely physics introduces an element of like responsiveness that is dynamic responsiveness. Man, I'm good with words today. But I also, if I remember correctly, I think Emily's from the education space. So like, if you were building an educational thing, which is usually guided and presents options and stuff, I think the key is that it can't be the same thing every time you come back to it. There's either it might even be easier to answer what makes things not replayable. Well, it's if you do it once and you don't want to do it again because you don't like it, or you do it once and it doesn't change.
It was really great. And then you do it again, and it's the exact same thing. And say, "Wow, that's really great." And you do it the third, fourth, fifth time. You're like, "Okay, I've done that. I don't need to do it again."
Yeah. So physics is one answer to dynamic responsiveness, but also involving other people. So like, I think about like Beat Saber. Like we've all been playing a lot of Beat Saber, and what makes that compelling for you to go back to it is you want to get better because you're comparing your score to yourself and you're comparing your score to other people. So that element of a score, and it not being so easy that there's like that's another thing that makes things replayable is if there's a way to change your level of experience based on your exposure to it. So like the more I use this, the better I get, the more new stuff I can see. I mean, this is all game theory stuff, right? This is all video game stuff. But, and also product, but like just at a higher level product stuff, like making something people aren't going to be like, you got to delight them with things that change or dynamic. And so the cool opportunity is like just the physical environment you're in. Like all this stuff changes all the time.
You know, what was that game that Niantic did that we played the crap out of for a while? Ingress. Ingress is a great example, and they haven't done it yet, but it'll be amazing if they ever do, of overlaying on top of reality in a gamey way. Can you imagine they act like, you know, figure it out with 60 AI or whoever wants to do the environmental geometry stuff and play that game in AR?
They're doing it.
So much to it.
So the company that does Ingress and Pokemon Go and Harry Potter Wizards Unite is Niantic, and they have a bunch of really talented augmented reality, computer vision people. They've shown some demos of like Pokemon being occluded in an environment. Harry Potter I played a fair amount of, and they did put the characters the Pokemon Go. Well, so Ingress had no AR mode. Pokemon Go had a weak AR mode where the character just kind of appeared and it didn't really feel like it's part of the environment. Harry Potter got a little better in that the character anchored into the environment. But the problem is, and this is just a challenge of the current tech, to get into the AR mode requires you to like scan around, and so the gameplay is supposed to be I'm walking around the real world, and I surprise, like there's this thing I can fight or this Pokemon I can catch, but because you got to first wave your phone around, get it to initialize, get it to bring up the camera, get it to like
Right.
I turned it off. Most people turn it off because when in that game, the AR.
You know why most people in old photographs have the really serious look on their face?
Because it took 20 minutes
Right.
to take a picture.
Okay, everyone hold completely still and don't smile because you're gonna screw up your face is gonna be all blurry.
Yeah, so imagine making Snapchat back then when it took you 20 minutes to take one. And so there's just there are challenges with that, but I do think it's coming, and there are companies working on. I don't know. There was an AR game that just got released this week. Oh man, I can't remember what it's called, but it's available through the Apple Arcade, and it's multiplayer. You're supposed to play with other people in the same room, and yeah, the tech is there. I just don't think the money is there, so you don't have a lot of people really trying for it. I mean, the reason why Niantic's been able to do it is because you put in, Pokemon and Harry Potter is going to make a lot of money, and so they can use that to push the stuff a little bit. But I don't know if they've quite nailed making AR an important piece of the experience, since people just turn it off, unfortunately. And I think they know that.
Right.
I don't think I'm being controversial there.
No. Hey, can I segue into
Totally.
a question that I saw on Twitter the other day? Someone was saying, hey, I'm in AR but I'm not a game designer, so I'm at a disadvantage because I'm not a game designer, and so I don't have any idea about like game theory or mechanics or like what makes a game replayable and stuff like that. And I just wanted to like kind of respond to that and say, one of the very best game designers I ever worked with was a guy with a history MBA or a master's degree, and he was a historian, and he did some of the greatest gameplay stuff because he had an experience of history and how humans work together and how humans fight each other. And so, you don't necessarily have to be a game designer in order to create good content. You can be a writer or, a musician or an actor or, politician.
And you definitely don't need to be a coder.
Yeah, you don't have to be. I mean, look at me, right?
Yeah, you're not a coder.
No, I'm not. No, I'm a bad artist who can't code.
But I think that's what people are like. Oh, I have an idea. First, I gotta learn how to write code. But I guess it depends on. I mean, this is an early industry. A lot of people are multidisciplinary. They like. I think there's a lot of people attracted to the how nascent the industry is too. So they if I can teach myself how to write code and make 3D models, then I can build my thing, and then I'll get it out there. It's hard. I mean, like this is the conversation I always have. Like, this stuff is not easy to do. I went on a little deep dive over the past week, digging back into WebXR and WebVR, and using Babylon and JavaScript, and all supposed to be super accessible. It's hard. It's a mess. Like, this stuff.
And the only reason that you're actually able to navigate that stuff is because of your years of experience.
It's hard for me.
How code works.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's. I think it's tough. So we did get a question. So what current platform do you see as viable or potential market for developers to target AR and XR? So I'm super biased on this, but for AR, I think the mobile phone market is super viable. I think it's tough to build a completely standalone AR thing. That if you mean by viable, that's something people might pay for. But it is possible. I mean, you've got a ton of devices out there, and how you target, well, the workflow for that. You've got this. It gets tricky. We talked about this in the last episode. Even if you say, well, I want to put out a mobile phone AR thing, you've got to decide if you want to be iOS and Android. Then if you say, well, I don't necessarily need to be on both, and you say, well, I want to be on iOS, and then do I want to deploy an app, or do I want to deploy web AR, or and each one of the answers to those questions fires off all these trade-offs, and that's what's difficult. I would say for VR, we've talked about the Quest a lot already, but I think the Quest is really cool. And a lot of people are starting to get one. It feels like, but you could also, and if you do that, you also need to decide. You could also do web VR, which is what I was tinkering with, or you can build it in Unity.
Well, there's also the other option too, is that you go into HoloLens 2, ML1, and you do more of an enterprise version of what you're doing, right? So like finding a client that is that's interested in a solution, whether it's entertainment or helping somebody fix a jet fighter, you can go in that direction too. And sometimes that's a pretty lucrative direction to go.
Well, so we got clarification that it is about how can you make the moolah.
There you go.
If you want to,
you know what? Here, I have an answer to that. The way you make the moolah is that you go and you go and you prostitute yourself out to the baby killers, and you go to the military industrial complex and you build military sims. That's how you make all the money. I can't do it, but you might be able to. I don't know.
Well, or in other words, like I think the only real big money is, I guess it depends. If your goal is just to make a lot of money in AR and XR, then you basically enterprise. You could say military, but there's healthcare, military, enterprise. If you've got an idea that you just want to get out there, that's probably a different set of criteria that you filter against. But I do think, our friend Amory, she likes to say, I don't know if she still says this, but last year we were talking about it, and she's like, we're kind of in the banner ads days of this tech. So like, I don't know if you remember,
I heard that.
But back in the early days of the web, there were people that made banner ads were making money hand over fist because people wanted to get something out there as an advertisement and to build those animated ads that fit all the different formats and stuff. If you learned enough,
they're like 256 by 64 pixels. And
So we're kind of like, so we shouldn't forget the social platforms too. Speaking of the banner ads for AR, you can make a decent amount of money, I think, building lenses and filters for other companies and stuff. So that's probably more realistic answer than going after the like a military contract or trying to sell to enterprise.
That's the other thing, is that if you're going to try to do a military contract, you have to be a contractor, and that is, I hope you like paperwork, because that's a mess.
It's not for me.
If that's your direction, just make sure you get somebody who loves paperwork.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, I've encouraged people to pick up the social tools. So Spark AR for Instagram and Facebook, and Lens Studio for Snapchat, and it's also a great way to learn this stuff. They're heavily tuned towards making face anchored content, but you can build world-based stuff, and it's a pretty nice way to get into it. And the other cool part is it solves one of the more difficult problems is if you do start building your own stuff is distributing it. Like, how do you give someone a build, or how do you get someone to load it up? And like, hopefully eventually WebXR will solve a lot of this. You say, well, just go to this URL, but right now you've got to install this browser and go to this URL, or you've got to do all these special things. Or if you make an app, you've got to tell them how to side load it or install it. So that's the other kind of cool thing about the social platforms. If you just have some kind of creative ideas you want to tinker with and get them out there, I think it's a great way to go. Because then, I don't remember Snap. I haven't built a Snap lens in a little bit, but I know on Instagram and Facebook you can basically publish a filter before publishing it publicly, and you can send people links, and if you can spread it around that way through the social channels. So kind of cool.
Yeah, or even before that, you can load it onto your own phone and just show people, like, the elevator pitch kind of thing. You can just be like, "Yeah, look."
Or you could record a video and fake it up real good and make it look.
Yeah, make sure you don't have any transparency in there.
Yeah.
What else we got?
I don't know. We're coming up on the top of the hour, so I'm just gonna look.
We had like 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any burning questions there in the chat?
We got a couple. We took care of a couple of chat people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is probably a good time to wrap it up. These are all these episodes. We had a run of 2. It's been great. We're gonna figure out our format some more. We're still just getting our bearings. We're gonna get Spencer soft ice cubes for his glass, and we'll get a more of an agenda set. I figure eventually we'll just settle into we'll have these sections people like to hear that we want to talk about.
And if we can figure out how to get your software to bring up the third window, we might be able to get somebody else to Skype in and have all 3 of us talking.
Well, there's actually an option. I'm kind of afraid to hit it, but on the comments, I can hit add to broadcast. But yeah, I definitely want to have guests too. So probably what we'll do. So bye, Dave. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Dave.
If you go to chat.xrtalk.net, that'll take you to our Discord. It's very quiet. So. And I just stay signed into it all the time. And oh my God, that was Jeff Shue planting us with questions that whole time.
Jeff, no, what?
Yep.
Shue was?
Yep. Our buddy Jeff. What country are you in now, Jeff?
What part of the planet are you now, dude?
It's not the planet, South Florida. Yeah. We'll have to catch up. So we're still figuring it out. Thanks for supporting us, and we're going to keep poking around for guest suggestions, questions, post comments in this video, tweet at us, chat. There's about 600 different ways you can get in touch with us, and tell us what you want to see and hear. And we love talking and rambling about this stuff. I guess we got to figure out some catchy tagline or catchphrase eventually.
And maybe we can get some like show music. We can. You know what? Who could do that is Nick Starter.
Nick Starter, yeah, that's his.
Yeah.
The world will know about Nick Starter someday. But yeah, actually, my wife actually told me that we should have a little ambient music track while we're during the whole show, and I totally forgot about it. So. We kind of threw this one together last minute, so good thing it's our last episode.
Next time we're going to play Nick's album behind us while we're doing it,
or we can make us one. But yeah.
Well,
there is no next time. This is the last episode. So
that's the last one.
Yeah. That's it.
Unless there's another one.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a reunion episode someday. So, all right, I'm going to sign off.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.